It's called The Collapse of American Soft Power Explained. Sorry guys, I'm on bimbo time in my brain. I see more of a ground news gal. Yeah, I mean, I will shill for anyone if they give me money. If I will shill for ground news, I would definitely shill for China if Xi Jinping gives me money and gives me a panda. If they want to do panda diplomacy on me and they want to give me a panda, I'm so down for that. China #1. Xi Jinping, call me, okay? Call me. I'm here. I'm waiting. I am ready to receive money and pandas. Oh, and a koi pond. I really want a koi pond. You have no idea how much I want a koi pond. I really want one.
Earlier this week, the Alliance of Democracies published the Democracy Perception Index, the world's largest annual study on how people perceive democracy, with over 110,000 respondents across 100 countries. There were lots of interesting findings in there, but the one that grabbed the most headlines is that America's global appeal has declined sharply.
Yay, we all disapprove.
China is more popular than the US. So in this video, we thought we'd take a look at the decline of America's global appeal, what you might call its soft power. So let's just start by looking at the relevant data.
I do these surveys every month or so, and I because they like give you $10 a survey or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I might as well just do it on my lunch break, you know. Make $10 or so, and I had to do like a geopolitics one or whatever, and I rated North Korea and China above America in where I ranked them and how much I like them and how much I trust them. Yeah, they got way higher marks. I know that like they use aggregate data and like all of your data is like de-identified and yada 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 yada. I know how it works, but I just like imagine in the old days where you used to hand back like a paper survey and someone would like look at your answers. They would be like, what's going on with this chick? China #1.
Most popular countries in the world at the moment are Switzerland, Singapore, Qatar, Canada and Japan. Most countries enjoy a net positive approval rating. That
Where
is,
are
more
we?
people across the world see them positively rather than negatively.
Hey, you didn't say Australia, and we're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're the 6th popular. Where's our medals? I want to get stuff.
Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Argentina all have a slightly negative rating of -1. Russia, Iraq and Hungary all have a net negative rating of around -10, and Belarus, Israel and Iran all have net negative ratings of over -20, making them the least popular countries in the world. Anyway, what makes this list particularly interesting is that, for the first time ever, the US also registered a net negative.
Yeah, Joey, my sister says popular instead of popular, so that's why I say it. She's pretty disabled, and she also apparently had a hearing problem. She wears a hearing aid now, but she didn't wear a hearing aid up until recently. So she always says like, yeah, she pronounces words really interestingly. She will always say, "You're so popular." She would always say to me, "You're so popular," and I'll be like, "Oh, thank you." Yeah, it's cute. Yeah, she does. She does her best. She's like intellectually like about age 5 intellectually. So yeah, she's like a kid in an adult's body. But yeah, she's a sweetie most of the time, unless she's not. She does chuck tantrums and those aren't good, but
Approval rating, coming in at -5. Not only is this the US's lowest score ever, it also puts the US well below its superpower rival, China, which currently enjoys a net approval rating of +14. Furthermore, the vast majority of countries surveyed view China more positively than the US. Obviously, some of this is down to Trump, who's uniquely unpopular internationally. According to the Democracy Perceptions Index, Trump's international net approval rating stands at -30, behind not only Xi, who enjoys a net approval rating of +2, but even Russian President Vladimir Putin, who sits at...
Yeah, but have you seen the Vladimir Putin with animals compilations? I'm just saying, like, that is very good PR. When I see a man like with a cat, with a kitten, with a dog, and he's like all, you know, giving it pats and kisses and stuff, I'm like, it's very appealing. let's just say.
After all, Trump has been far less friendly to Europe than Biden was, threatening to invade Greenland/Denmark, abandoning Ukraine, and frequently attacking what he sees as Europe's unfair trade practices. Trump is super unpopular in Europe and the Middle East, but enjoys a net positive approval rating in sub-Saharan Africa.
That's so interesting. What's going on in Africa? Huh. The problem with any poll about the global opinion of the US in Western nations right now is everything is about Trump. The opinion could easily flip black. It 100% could. It would be interesting to see a comparison of the data from like 2016 to 2020, and then the Biden, and then to see if there was a flip. Yeah, I mean, we could look at that, I guess. Because we've already seen like Trump, no Trump, Trump. So we definitely have the Biden years in between the Trump terms to have a look at, see how things flippity-floppitied. Approval was still pretty low under Biden. Well, I mean, they did literally have a man who should have been in care. Honestly, they were trolling out basically a reanimated corpse, meat puppet guy. So, yeah.
America's global image obviously suffered in Trump's first term, although not quite as much as it is right now.
Although, I think since about 2003, America's approval amongst a lot of countries has been on the downward slide, especially when we found out there were no weapons of mass destruction and the Arab Spring, you know, the CIA's involvement in like the toppling of like basically every regime in the Middle East. Like, are these things they do? Even like normies start to notice patterns and they're just like, Trump is importing white people from South Africa. Yeah, he is, but that's not sub-Saharan Africa. Didn't it say sub-Saharan Africa? A horrible person. I can't see what you're putting in chat. If it's the name of a video or a link, just put the title of it or put a space in there so I can just copy and paste it if it is a link. Or if it's naughty words, don't say naughty words. I don't know.
Was somewhat of a recovery under Biden, global opinion towards the US still soured towards the end of his term and never returned to the...
Trump is saying there's a white genocide there. I know there was like something happening with farmers. I know there were some murders of white farmers, but I don't... it's really hard to know what's happening because the far right media portrays it one way and the far left media portrays it one way. So it's like, well, is the truth somewhere in the middle, or I don't know. So it's really, really hard to actually know what's happening in South Africa. But I don't think taking white refugees from South Africa would necessarily correlate with a positive approval rating in sub-Saharan Africa, because that's like a different region of Africa. People see America is something to be managed these days. Low trust, all gloves. Oh, 100%. 100%. And I think the reason why we put up with their shit before is because we had to. But now that it's, you know, the sun is setting on the American empire, we're kind of more in a position to just slowly back away. I don't know. I don't remember a time in my life where people have thought highly of Yanks. I think Americans just always assume that everyone likes them. But at least like the people around me and the people I grew up around with always kind of thought of them as like verbose, loud, arrogant, rude. And that was kind of whenever I would come across American tourists in Sydney or stuff, that was sort of the experience as well, I think. Or just them whinging about, like, in America, back home, we do it like this. It's like, all right, well, I'll take you to the airport, mate. Off you go. Like, it's like, don't go to another country and then complain they don't do things like they do in your country. It's like, yeah, it's another country. That's why you travel, to experience another culture. I don't know, I always found that funny.
This is for a variety of reasons, but perhaps fundamentally because constant political dysfunction means America is no longer seen as the beacon of democracy it once was. 63% of Americans thought the US would have a positive influence on the world, the lowest figure ever recorded by quite some margin.
Lowy poll as far back as 2006, 39% of Australians didn't trust the USA. Yeah, and that's like 3 years into Iraq, right? And we're starting to see on the news like Australians being killed, especially in friendly fire incidences with America. And why are we over there? Well, we were over there because of John Howard, but he's never going to get into any trouble. So there's been greedy politicians for a long time taking advantage of other countries. Yeah. It's all of America's relationships seem to be incredibly one-sided, but then they portray themselves as like doing like, especially Australia, they always portray themselves as like doing us favors, and it's like, are you okay in the brain? Because that's just not the reality of the situation.
On the one hand, you've got politicians like Trump, who seem to think that soft power, often defined as the ability to co-opt rather than coerce, doesn't really matter as long as you've still got hard power. In other words, the ability to force other countries into doing what you want via, say, tariffs or military action, also affect what sort of governments they elect. And the decline in America's global standing will make them more likely to elect governments willing to resist American coercion. We've already seen this in both Canada and Australia, where more left-wing candidates who promised to take a stronger stance against Trump triumphed in the polls.
Okay, I don't know anybody that voted for Labour because of their stance on America. Like, sorry, little British femboy guy. I don't know your name. Sorry, dude, who made this video. But yeah, that is such a reductive, oversimplified, oh, Trump bad, therefore Australia and Canada elected left-wing governments. No. Peter Dutton really literally did everything wrong. Everything that could have gone wrong for Peter Dutton went wrong. And I think when, especially with, you know, a lot of people struggling to keep a roof over their head in Australia, when people found out that, you know, Peter Dutton was worth $300 million and how he made that money, I think that really took it down. But like to suggest that American foreign policy has that much influence, Australia's domestic federal elections, is just no, we don't care about you, we don't think about you, we don't care. Like, I think Dutton initially being so pro-Trump and sort of tying himself to that and trying to like style himself as being like similarly, you know, minded and policy driven in that vein. Also, the other thing was Dutton wasn't really taking any policy. He wasn't going into the election with any policy, and he was just expecting the media not to ask him about policy, and they did, and a lot of Australians saw that. And I think a lot of Australians saw, you know, the future made in Australia policy paper. A lot of Australians are hyper aware that like we need to modernize our economy. We can't just have an economy that's based on housing and resources and have that like as, you know, the tape that holds our shit together. That is not sustainable into the future. And to have a policy paper like Future Made in Australia, a lot of people found that really appealing because it's like, okay, someone's got a plan for the country. We can't just keep on doing the same shit, right? It's not sustainable into the future. And what does that have to do with Trump? None of that has anything to do with Trump. None of it. Dutton just had no idea what he was doing in the campaign. Oh, it's like he read a book of like what not to do and thought it was a book of what to do. Like 100%. He just kept on shooting himself in the foot over and over and over again. Like, it was just a comedy of errors every day. I almost felt sorry for him by the end of it. And like, I detest the man, but I almost felt sorry for him because it's like, oh, you poor little thing. You keep hurting yourself in confusion. You think he wanted to be reactionary and mean and everyone has already rejected that? Yeah, I think so. But I don't think it had anything to do with Trump. I mean, there were definitely some people that were turned off. The far right Australians seem to really be pro-American and they seem to like worship the Yanks for some reason. And they're always talking about like the First and Second Amendment, like it has anything to do with us and yada, yada, yada. And they want, you know, they want Australia to be America. It's all very, very strange. I think a lot of those people, I think he was trying to court that vote, right? I think Dutton was trying to court that vote. But then when the people that aren't super far right and just sort of thought that Trump was maybe funny, a bit counterculture, when they saw especially the way he was treating Australia, who has always been a really good ally, they were like, nah, fuck that. We don't like Trump, and we don't like somebody that's styling themselves after Trump and sucking up to Trump. And I think that was a turn off for a lot of people. But I don't even know that those people would have necessarily have voted for Dutton as the election progressed anyway. I just don't. I'm not going to say Trump's no factor, but to state that like that's the overarching reason why, I just don't think it is. The pro-American Aussies, yeah, I wonder if they're all bots, honestly, because if it, like, how could somebody that dumb function in society? I just, yeah, I couldn't even see themselves like doing a Woolies run without hurting themselves.
For anyone who's worried about America being usurped by a rising China, and this is pretty much a bipartisan anxiety in Washington at the moment, the fact that global opinion is turning towards Beijing should be a cause for concern, especially given Trump is currently trying to force countries to choose between the two superpowers.
Shush! You think that the idea that countries turning away from the US will uniformly lean towards China is misplaced. Well, yeah, they just assume that if one superpower is out of favor, then you'll automatically suck up to the alternative, right? Yeah, that's not necessarily the case, but some people can only see things in a binary. They're like, well, if not this superpower, then must be other superpower. You're immune to propaganda, so you read whatever you want. Okay, Hyperbovian, you have a still mind, an impenetrable brain. No propaganda's getting in. Stretching. This video, I think, is by the same guy. Why Australia is falling out with the US. Because we feel like it.
Last month, the US announced that it was conducting a review of its AUKUS security pact with the UK and Australia, with some US defense officials apparently arguing that AUKUS is inconsistent with Trump's America First policy, and that the US shouldn't supply submarines to Australia.
They act like they're just giving us these submarines. We are paying for them, and we lost money because we already commissioned submarines from the French, and we lost money when we reneged on that deal, and now you're acting like we're getting these submarines for free. No, we're paying you for submarines we're probably not even gonna get. Okay. Calm down. I'm gonna have an aneurysm, okay? It's serious. You can't be manipulated if you can't read. That is a very, very good argument for illiteracy. And I support you, Hyperbovian. I really do. As Ludwig would say, let's get those numbers up. Or down, in your case. I don't know. Although actually getting your blood alcohol up would actually decrease your ability to read in the long term if you're brain dead. You're paying the opportunity cost of waifu subs. I will subscribe to you, little nerd boy. You seem nice. I like you. Let's go.
Recap the 2025 Australian election. Until just a couple of months before the election in May, polls suggested that the Conservative Liberal National Coalition, led by Peter Dutton, would oust the incumbent Prime Minister.
Yeah, subscribe to the nerdy twink. A horrible person is correct. Look, we have all the manly men in Australia. Not everybody, you know, not everybody can be a hot chat Australian man, so that's okay. All the hot men in Britain committed crimes and came to Australia, okay? This is known. This is a known fact. And that's why we have all the hotties over here. And it's just the way it is. And sorry England and Wales and Scotland and hey champ, Panda Doris sent me here. Yeah. Look, his videos are probably good. You thought the twins were for the boys? Twinks or twins? Are you talking about boobies or are you talking about twinks? Hyperbovian, you need to get back to me. Both boobies and twinks. Although I will say one thing I've noticed about gay men is gay men really like boobs, not in like a sexual way, obviously, but like if you're hanging out with a gay guy, they'll always want to like put their head like on your boobs when you're watching a movie or something. I don't know. Anyway, I think I was telling somebody this story the other day, actually. I was friends with a goth gay guy in high school. So, because it came up, like, because I was saying, oh, like my friend in high school, he was like super into Kylie Minogue and super into Marilyn Manson. And they were like, what? And I was like, he was a gay goth guy. And they were like, Oh, but my dad was really suspicious of him, right? My dad was really suspicious of him. My dad's like, there's no way, you know, that he's gay. He's just having all these Sheilas going around to his house and yada, yada, yada. And my dad was like really suspicious and wouldn't let me sleep over at his house. And then my dad met him and my dad was like, oh yeah, he is definitely gay. My dad's like, that dude is 100% gay. He's like, you can sleep in the same bed as him. I don't care. I'll buy you alcohol if you want to come over there. My dad was like, yeah, that man is not straight. That kid is not straight. Like, I don't have to be concerned about this as a father. So
The Trump administration was unpopular with the Australian public, with a YouGov poll in April finding that 66% of respondents thought that Australia needs to develop more independence from the US on defence and national security, compared to just 39% in June of 2024.
Australia needs to develop independence from the US. I mean, that's just, we should not be dependent on the US. I strongly doubt if shit kicked off that they would even come to our defense. Look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't like nukes, all right? But we have the uranium, we have the scientists, we have the capacity to just make our own nukes without having to get permission from anybody else. Let's just... The big plot twist is that he turned out to be bi. No, I can tell you that he's definitely he's still very, very, very gay. Very gay. Very gay. That man is 100% for the doodles. Yeah, very gay. Yeah, Australia, if we have nukes, no one's gonna fuck with us. We don't have to be dependent on anyone. Just having them is deterrence from anyone attacking us. We obviously get rid of Pine Gap because that makes us a target for an attack. Because obviously if, especially an Asian power, if they want to take out America's weapons systems, they take out Pine Gap, well, that takes out, you know, long-range missile systems, right? Because you can't triangulate with only 2 sites. You need 3 sites for triangulation. So, yeah, nukes. We just have them. We're not going to use them. Australia is a peaceful country. But people aren't going to fuck with us if we have nukes. We should have nukes. We literally have the uranium here on our continent. We don't have to, you know, go through all these back channels or try and get permission from the world, you know, try and explain morally why we should have nukes. We just go. Like, I've got heaps of friends with youths, right? I'm like, let's go on a road trip to the Northern Territory. Obviously it has to be in winter because I will die from that UV exposure in summer. Like, I actually probably would die. We drive down some random dirt roads, we find some yellow rocks. There's probably a 50-50 chance that a yellow rock in the Northern Territory is uranium. Chuck it in the back of the ute, you know. We find some STEM boys. If they're hot, that's better. If they're not, that's okay. If they're just smart, that'll do. I mean, I prefer looking at nice things, but you know, we'll take what we can get. We'll supply them with beer. We'll be like, hey boys, enrich this uranium. Maybe we'll find like some chemical engineering students, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll just hit up the group of 8 unis. We'll go to the bars. We'll sort it out. I'm good in those situations. Okay, we'll sort it out. We'll get the STEM kids to enrich the uranium. Then, you know, they can do all the atom splitting and all that stuff. It'll, you know, it will be difficult, not hard. STEM girly discrimination. Well, look, if they're gay STEM girlies, I can definitely work my magic on them. But look, there are way less girls in STEM. Like, we know that. I do have friends that are in, you know, medical researchers and things like that. Like, I do have female friends that have STEM degrees, but they're the minority, and they're the minority in their workplaces as well. So
the US is pushing for Australia to reduce its trade with China, which Australia doesn't want to do. And Australia is also worried that US tariffs on China could undermine the Chinese economy, reducing demands for Australian exports. While on defence, the US has called for Australia to increase its defence spending from its current levels of about 2% of GDP to 3.5% of GDP as soon as possible.
Well, apparently with the beef, China's been taking the beef. But what I wanted to happen was for Australia to take the beef. Because how many times do you just want a steak or something and you go to Coles or you go to Woolies or you go to the butcher and you look at the price of a steak and you're just like, oh God, I don't want to spend that much for a steak. Like, honestly, you're better off going to the pub or something for a steak and getting like chips and a salad and not having to cook it yourself. And like probably having a beer as well, because it's just so expensive. Like, I wanted us to get the beef so it would bring the price of beef down, but we've been sending it to China apparently and they're really enjoying it. Not gonna lie, increasing our defense spending is probably a good move. I think it is, but I don't want to do it in the way that Trump wants us to do it. I want to do it in a way that makes us independent from the US. That's not what he wants.
Furthermore, Albanese argued that it's up to Australia to decide its defence budget, that arbitrary GDP limits are unhelpful, and that defence needs should be established first and funding allocated afterwards, rather than the other way round. However, this week Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong hinted that the US may have cooled off on its demand for Australia to increase its defence spending, at least for now.
Notice how when ANZUS disappeared, there's no NZ in AUKUS. So New Zealand just get to walk away. They don't have to be America's bitch, but we have to. ANZUS is gone. AUKUS is here. We have to have the OR. No NZ. That really pisses me off. And stop saying you invented the flat white and stop saying you invented pavlova, okay? Because don't make me come over there. I will take away your favorite sheep and I will never give it back. All right? And we all know how much you love your sheep waifus over there, and I mean business. So keep the flat white and the pavlova out of your mouth, all right?
Now, even before the Trump administration was explicitly flirting with ditching the pact, there were anxieties in Australia that the US might not actually deliver the submarines.
Yeah, they're not going to. They're not going to.
It's currently lagging behind.
I don't even think it's an on-time thing. They're literally training welders at the moment. If we do get them at all, I think they're going to be really shoddy, but I don't think we're even going to get them. I don't think we're going to get them. We shouldn't have buggered over the frogs. Can we just give us our refund? If you haven't even started building them, just give us our refund and let us like have... it's so annoying. Just annoying. Grr, poo, wee.
This AUKUS debacle has also restarted a wider debate in Australia about the country's dependence on the US. Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull claims that Australia is being mugged over its billion-dollar payments for US submarines that may never arrive, with Australia forecast to spend up to $368 billion in total on AUKUS between now and the mid-2050s, and instead argues that Australia should develop its own, more self-reliant defence strategy. Albanese's government does appear to be making moves here, announcing last month that Australia would start talks on a defence and security pact with the EU.
The issue is the deal with the frogs was a bit shoddy because they weren't nuclear. Ugh. I'm Homer Simpson. It's pronounced nuclear. Nuclear. Never make deals with Trump. Well, you know, he did write the book on it, Ricochet. He did write The Art of the Deal. Turnbull is so funny. He hates Trump. Yeah. He was going to originally join the Labour Party instead of the Liberal Party, but then he joined the Liberal Party. Apparently, that's a thing.
Whether it's wars, economics, or geopolitics, it feels like things are increasingly uncertain. And who's at the middle of all of that? Well, the United States. At one time, the US seemed to be a steady, stabilizing force in global politics, but it seems that those days are over, with American influence, popularity, and dominance on the decline. So in the next issue of our magazine, Too Long, we're discussing this shift.
He's got a magazine! Oh, I'm gonna buy his magazine, guys. I'm gonna buy his magazine. I probably actually will. God bless.
In that section of the magazine, we unpack everything from the collapse of democratic norms in the US to the decline.
Literally every celebrity or politician or whatever uses a ghostwriter. All of them do, Ricochet. All of them. They're barely literate people. Like, yeah, he's got a zine. It actually looks cool. I actually would like this. I'll read it on the train into the city. Look, guys, look at me. I'm reading about geopolitics. Aren't I so smart? Thank you. A horrible person wants to see Turnbull and Albo pash in front of Parliament. Apparently a sloppy one. Lots of tongue and lots of saliva. Just going at it. I mean, I think if you put like some pasta sauce on Tony Abbott, Why did I say Tony Abbott? Where did that come from? I think if you... my brain went back in time. I think if you put some pasta sauce on Malcolm Turnbull's face, like lips, you might be able to entice Albo to come in for the pash, I reckon. Or get him on the beers. He seems fond of the beer, does Albo. Take him to a gig, get him on the beers. Turnbull rocks up with like arrabbiata sauce on his mouth, and you know it's probably going to be on. We can film it and project it on like onto the speaker's little lectern thing that he has. I mean, that would technically be them pashing in front of Parliament. We could do it. It's doable. Yeah, I don't know why my brain saw Turnbull and Albo and came up with Abbott. I did catch the ferry over when I was a student. I did catch the ferry over to Manly one time because this really hot guy that lived in French's Forest was like asked me to go to his house. So me and my friend, we called the ferry over, and apparently that's where Tony Abbott lives. But anyway, the guy picked us up in his van from like the ferry like terminal or whatever, and he was really weird and we were really scared. So we ended up just walking around the suburb that Tony Abbott lived like late at night because yeah, I was like, oh god, this guy's giving creepy vibes. You know when someone's like hot, but then you talk to them and you're like, oh, you're kind of, no. Some people just open like their mouths and all the hotness goes away. Tony in his budgie smugglers had a large middle-aged female like, I'm not into that very British like look. No, that's gross. Tony Abbott is gross. Yuck. Oh, and when he was trying to say that his daughters were heaps smashable, I'm like, maybe on the northern beaches where there's like no genetic diversity, but not in the rest of Australia, mate. Like, take it down a notch. No, I think when I just saw Turnbull, my brain went back in time to when like Tony Abbott was, you know, politically relevant. Starlee Steggall's been in his seat for ages now, right? She's been in there for a few terms. She started off the whole Teal hot and crazy is trying to date lately. No, I just like hot. I like hot and smart. You have to be hot and smart and funny. Hot, smart, and funny. Otherwise, I'm not entertaining any of that. Hyperbovian, this influencer on I don't know, one of the, I think Instagram or YouTube or something, she said if you can match your own standards, then your standards aren't too high. All right? So don't you tell me about my standards for men, thank you. I think it's so nice that he made a magazine, and I actually might buy it because I'll see how much the postage is to Melbourne, but I might buy his magazine because God bless. Look, he looks like a sweet boy. He looks like he's probably nice to his mum and his nan. He looks like he helps people, like, he looks like he helps mothers, you know, with their prams off public transport, like, I don't know. He looks like a nice boy. Sometimes, you know, I will buy his magazine. It actually seems good. I know I'm going to get bitten by my cat when I finish streaming because she's mad. Because she's decided she's not allowed into this room, even though she is. And because she's decided that she's not allowed in this room, then she can't hang out with me. And then she will bite me to voice her displeasure at me streaming because she's decided she doesn't like it. I'm feeling very attacked. I think I might play some GeoGuessr and then go to bed. It's 11 o'clock. And I have to go to the gym. I have to go to the gym after I finish streaming. Luckily the gym is 200 meters from my house, thank God. But I bought like an EFS gym membership. It was like half price because it was the end of financial year sale, which is good because I couldn't afford that gym. I was like, oh, it's so close and it's pretty good. They have like a sauna there. They've got like ice bath stuff. They've got all this fancy stuff. And I was like, ooh, and it's walking distance and it's 24 hours. It's like, ooh, everything's good. But they wanted like $2,000 for a gym membership. It's like, I don't have $2,000. So yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym. It's gonna be good. Well, it won't be good, but I need to go. I need to go stop my muscles from wasting away. So that's what we're gonna do. I have the Sailor Moon theme song in my head. I've been watching like shorts on YouTube, like Sailor Moon shorts. People have been making like AIs of like Sailor Scouts in real life. And I'm like, ooh, what does Sailor Mars look like in real life? And I'm like, ooh. And I've just been watching them. So I've just been walking around humming Sailor Moon.